Well, hello everybody and welcome to Metaworld News for the week ending the 28th of January 2018. Of course it is. This is a program where we bring you headlines to do with virtual worlds, and a little about virtual reality interfacing technology where it's pertinent to basically using virtual worlds. There is, of course, a lot of hype around VR these days, and more toys than you can count, most of which are irrelevant to the conversation, but we do have a few, particularly in this week's highlights. Now, the highlights I'm reading out, the links, if you don't catch them on the program here, are available on my Twitter feed, which is twitter.com/Malburns. That's MALBURNS. There is an additional Twitter feed at twitter.com/Metaworld News, just like this show. Although the one after my name is the principal feed for monitoring. Okay, and looking at the highlights, the first few that pop up here this week come from about 5 days ago, so I guess beginning of the week really. UploadVR.com has a post about basically it's a trailer for the movie Ready Player One, which is a new Steven Spielberg movie, but it's based on Ernest Cline's novel of the same name, which has always been of particular interest to people using virtual worlds, since principal plot of the story all takes place in a future where virtual worlds are really almost inseparable from reality. In fact, the virtual world, as it were. Anyway, what they point out at Upload VR is that Spielberg himself is in the trailer points out that he believes that virtual reality will be a super drug. Yeah, that's from the mouth of Steven Spielberg. So, want to read more about it? Go to uploadvr.com. Digital Trends reported that forget bulky controllers, electronic skin may make it easier to interact with VR. And of course, we do hear about controllers, hand controllers, haptics, sleep motions for gestures, and of course the ubiquitous helmet to view it all in. However, the feeling here is that some kind of electronic skin may actually be the solution if we're going to spend a lot of time interacting with VR. It obviously doesn't cover the viewing of it. You could be wearing an electronic skin and standing in front of a 2D screen, and the effect would presumably be very similar without the environment of 3D surround environment. It reminds me of, I don't know, the historic days when people like me were imagining a future where we would all be wearing Lycra bodysuits. And really, when you think about it, this is just a more sophisticated take on that. So more on that subject at Digital Trends. And VRScout.com. In a sense, in fact, I'm going to open this while we're talking. In a sense, this is one of the stories of the week. In fact, on my list here, it's not the third down. It's actually the first one. It was published on July 22nd. It actually concerns a platform called VR Chat, which is fairly rudimentary at the moment, but really requires a helmet to operate in it fully. I haven't had much success on a 2D screen. But apparently, a VR Chat user had a seizure in the real world whilst he was in the game. They describe it as a terrifying seizure. And basically, I mean, this is a perfect example of both the pros and cons of what essentially, at the end of the day, has nothing to do with VR. It's to do with people. Fellow players were actually able to tell from his tactile inputs that he was having a seizure and wondering what was going on. And, you know, sort of, obviously some people were very concerned, you know, paralyzing convulsions and stuff, to me, you know. And you know, quite a harrowing experience, and were obviously very concerned. And it's not really clear if they were able to do much, where they had a real world contact for the person or whatever. But equally, some of the coverage about this sort of, typically in the more mainstream media, describes players just looking on attentively, like it was a voyeuristic episode where they decided, oh, this guy's playing having a seizure, he's larking around, you know. And it does make you wonder, you know, in environments like this in the future, you know, what is real and what is unreal may not be, you know, the easiest of things to figure out, especially when you obviously do have people in these words. So I think it's a great lark, you know, to
Mal, this is the story I think I mentioned last week too, and
yeah,
you know, watching that video was fascinating because you know, there were a mix of players that were trying to get some respect for the person suffering the seizure, and then there was still a little bit of almost like griefing going on with players intruding on the space. Of course, almost nothing anyone could do. Nobody knows where this person is in real life, and so yeah, very interesting.
I love this summary of sort of the unidentified player has confirmed that he recovered from the incident and is now doing fine. It says, one of the most terrifying moments of the seizure is the short-term memory loss out of finally coming out of an episode. I can only imagine the sheer amount of pure confusion this man or woman had after waking up in a group consisting of Uganda knuckles, a harem of anime girls, and etc., etc. Yeah, so you come out of your shock, you know, and you're still in virtual reality, and you're looking at the people surrounding you, and where am I? How did I get here? You know. Anyway, yeah. So serious questions to be, you know, tackled on that one. Right, moving ahead a day or so. RoadToVR.com have a post. AltSpace VR CEO Eric Romo. AltSpace VR is still going, but of course the actual company AltSpace VR sort of collapsed some time back, and you know it's sort of been brought back, you know, as the app continues. The founding company doesn't, if you see what I mean. But apparently the CEO of AltSpace VR, this will be the, you know, original AltSpace VR, has actually joined Facebook, and he's been hired as a senior member of their social VR team. So Facebook, obviously, with their Facebook spaces and stuff, grabbing up anybody who comes along who can probably try and help them with world domination. Interesting post, actually, in, I think it was Medium or Pocket, one of the feeds today. It's actually an article sort of that speculates that Facebook time has come. And by time has come, I'm not referring to massive success. I'm referring to falling into major decline. So interesting thoughts there, but it's not a link I have for this show handy. Right, voicesofvr.com. Number 615, LARPing. LARP in capitals, then ING. The future of live action role playing in immersive entertainment. This is way off into the VR field. It's making parallels of traditional games like tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons, driven by a desire to be more immersed, and how VR could be extending that immersion for live action role playing. Post on Virtual Reality Newsnet. This is virtual reality news, or one word, virtual reality news.net. And HTC Vive, which of course is one of the headset gadgets that surround, along with Oculus and the rest, announced that it will be partnering with the World Economic Forum, which is actually going on right now, to promote something called the VR AR Impact Initiative. Now, we all know the likes of the, Theresa May, our British Prime Minister, along with other heads of state and all sorts of things, are all over there nattering and discussing and trying to look good, and probably come away and do nothing that they say they're going to do. Fair enough, that's what they do. yeah, the pair are actually showcasing content at the United Nations Sustainable Impact Hub, which is actually, you know, a sort of pavilion kind of thing at the World Economic Forum over in Davos. Let's just hope some of our world leaders and puppeteers have a look at that and see what it can do, the benefits. Again, they're being sold on the idea of plonking us into helmets rather than the more generalistic idea of what virtual reality can do. But there you go. There was another voicesofvr.com podcast, number 614, which actually is the one before the one I just pointed out, designing around disruptive audience members for interactive narratives. This is an interview with somebody called Tommy Honton, who's an experiential designer in immersive space, immersive theatre space, but is helping design various experiences for actual VR as well. It had to come. Pity I haven't got Maria here to announce this one. A post from uploadvr.com. The inevitable has happened. Somebody is combining sex robots with VR. Post is entitled Virtual Intercourse with Real People Combines Sex Robots with VR. And the photo isn't, well, the photo in its way is innocent enough, but you don't really need to go much further than the photo with this article to, you know, the guy is laying back on a seat. There is a woman spread eagle above him sitting on his lap, and he's got his hands on her upper chest, and he's doing the whole thing with a virtual reality helmet on. You know, it looks, you know, I guess the woman is one of these new Japanese robots that actually looks like a woman. And I don't know what they come equipped with or anything else like that, but the idea is that the traditional sex toys are now being linked to haptic stuff, and that in turn is being linked to a virtual environment, and yeah, you can have it away in cyberspace. I don't know. But obviously the sex trade, the adult market, whatever you want to call it, from the days of video and going back as far as I can remember, they do tend to be pioneers in these spaces, pioneering things that ultimately go far beyond that particular preoccupation. Right, better move on, I think. RoadToVR.com. This one says 18 hours ago. The key technology behind Varjo's high-res bionic display headset. I think Varjo are the ones... Okay, I'm just going to quickly open this one too. I think this is light field technology, but I need to open it and check again. Varjo, relatively new name in VR. Company is making a buzz, having quickly raised $50 million in venture capital, touting the promise of delivering a headset achieving retina resolution at the center of the field of view. But how exactly does it work? Well, a new graphic shows that information, and the article then goes on to describe it. And these seem to be micro displays which have incredible pixel density, but I'm actually wrong. It is a separate thing from the light field technology. But if you're interested in technological developments that may affect things, there you go. Now, RoadToVR.com also has another post. Lightfield Lab announces a $7 million investment to develop light field displays, and this might explain why I was getting confused there. Two posts at the same site, I think, isn't it? Basically, some veterans of a company called Litro have got seed funding for their company Lightfield Lab. And I think this is one of two companies that are now really positioning themselves to develop light field technology, which is very different from the current viewing technology we use. This sort of projects onto, I think basically it projects onto your irises rather than your irises seeing what's in front of you, kind of thing. Right, Upload VR had a general article which is of interest after the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. We saw a collection of next generation technologies, wireless, super high resolution, eye tracking, blah, blah, blah. So they've produced an article talking about the 5 things they're likely to see in 2019 VR headsets. In other words, they're talking about not this year's headsets, but next year's headsets. And of course, we're at the beginning of the year, so that's they're reaching out a bit there, aren't they? Okay, VRScout.com have another article on a similar theme. The future of VR headsets is wireless with inside-out tracking. Again, they're talking about the headsets here. 1,001 headsets to choose from at various price points, of course, to do different things. But, you know, what's pertinent here is not so much the model of headset, but the technologies, the changing technologies that they're actually putting into the headset. So the idea being is they're cable free as you wear them, and they actually have inside out tracking, I should say, inside them, and that together with your personal skin should do the job, I guess. Go figure. Right, digital trend. Yeah, quite. Now, digital trend. No, I'm going to put these in the reverse order. There were 2 posts that came in this morning. They're both marked 29 minutes ago, so I'm going to save the gem for last. The first post is from VRScout.com again today. Plex VR. Plex is a media server that many of you may know. You know, you can install it locally to serve your music collection, you know, via your local network to a receiver that can pick it up, or a pad, or whatever, or Bluetooth speakers. They have a thing called Plex VR now, and it's designed to bring social viewing, not really a social world, but sort of, to Daydream headsets. Daydream are kind of middle market headsets. This has already been tried in a way with things on... well, I think there's a built-in facility for social viewing on the PlayStation. I'm not on VR. I'm not quite sure offhand. But tons of customization, multi-user support, and attention to detail could make this one of the best content viewing applications for VR yet. The idea is, I suppose, if you imagine a virtual world where you go into a landing space and other people are in there, and you can sit down and actually view basically what are 360 media videos and things, VR media. But you can actually, instead of just firing up and sending them to your own TV, you can fire up a big screen in the in-world environment, and you can chatter and talk to people who are watching these things with you. So it brings a participatory, interactive element into it, and of course it combines them all in one 3D space. Now, anybody who's used early platforms like Second Life, or indeed where we are today, OpenSim and the Hypergrid, knows that all this is actually possible already. But of course, Plex is a well-known media server, along with Roku. It's probably the biggest name in this kind of field, and the fact that this is probably viewable on a television, even though it's a virtual world on a television, showing you a television inside the virtual world, if you catch my drift. Yeah, go figure, the mirror in the mirror bit. Yes, exactly. Interesting that they're tackling this, because it certainly has the social VR aspect to it, even though it's actual what they call social viewing. So, to my final post, and it comes from Digital Trends. It popped up at the same time. And I annotated the post of this, but my annotation doesn't show up. But I think I actually described this link as "forget BR, kick this bucket." Although that is a dodgy phrase in itself, isn't it? I don't. Well, I will kick this bucket, but I don't know whether I'm ready to kick it yet. If you see what I mean, right? Pop theatre is your own personal theatre that you can wear on your head. Yeah, but it's a bucket. It's a Kickstarter to get a bucket. And, well, I mean, as this points out, sometimes the most unlikely things do, in a way, is take off. They're pitching this, everyone to watch a movie in public or at home without being distracted. You know, for most people, earphones will be probably enough to ensure it's not interrupted. But if you want more, they've got this new Kickstarter. It might just be for you, and it's pop theatre. It's a bucket. Well, actually, it's a bucket-like product. Yes, big difference there. You put it over your head to block out noises, no distractions, while viewing content on your smartphone and tablet. You simply place the device on the top of the theatre and look up to watch movies or TV shows. You control the content via a separate Bluetooth device. Now, frankly, if I went into my bathroom right now and cleaned the bucket that's in there and brought it out here and got some Velcro or stuff and stuck my mobile phone onto the inside of the bucket facing downwards in the bucket, but it will be upwards when I put the bucket on my head. Haven't I just done the same thing? And aren't there plenty of Bluetooth devices already that I can be wearing inside my bucket? It's not as though this bucket is having a panoramic screen inside it. It's just going to keep your smartphone in it. So anyway, this is going to set you back, apparently, according to the Kickstarter, about $540 USA. I actually recommend going to your local hardware store and buying a bucket, maybe taking, you know, the little handle off it and cleaning it, turning it upside down, and getting some, you know, stick and stick Velcro where you can put your, you know, you can find the right position to put your it might even work with something heavy like an iPad. Put it into position, and then you put on your Bluetooth headphones and your controllers and whatever, and you put the bucket over your head. And I think that might cost you more like 54 cents, not $540. So go figure, go figure. But anyway, sometimes the strangest things are successful. So forget VR, grab a bucket. I love it.
You might use that handle for a chin strap.
Yes. Don't forget, recycle anything, folks. You know, that handle may have another use. It may indeed. So anyway, we had to end on that one, didn't we? Now, the Metaworld newsfeed doesn't really have anything new this week. I've just realised it actually has one post, which is from it's Austin Tate's blog, actually, and it's all about something called Ruth 2. Ruth 2 and Roth 2. Roth 2 apparently is the male of the Ruth. A low poly mesh avatar body specifically designed for Open Simulator. They're built to use standard SL, which I think stands for Second Life UV maps. So Open Simulator using SL, go figure. Using Scratch-built open source mesh bodies by Shinningen and other open source contributions from Open Simulator community, and the page provides links and resources relating to them. So that's what you get. The exact link you want is blog.inf.ed.ac.uk. So I'll do that again, blog.inf.ed.ac.uk. And that's his blog with those links about Roth 2. Ruth 2. Oh, Roth 2 and Ruth 2. I didn't know there was a Roth 2 until I read this. I don't know. Yeah. Forget Adam and Eve. We now have Ruth and Roth. There you go. Right. So that was a little post there that might be of interest. And I'm doing a quick scan of stuff I've sent to Google Plus too. I did... forget this is by the Apollo Villa. It's a video actually on YouTube, and it's I've posted it. It's clearly not going to tell me anything about it. Basically, the Apollo Villa is created by Tosha Tyran in World. I forget actually who made it's on CraftGrid installation. I forget in the feed here it doesn't tell me immediately who actually made the clip. It may have been Wizard Oz Chrome or somebody like that who does a lot of this. Plus our show from last week, of course. Also a very short clip, it's only a minute or so, from Cherry Manga, which is just a little preview leading up to the Festavi event that she does this year. And a post, oddly enough, from Hypergrid Business, celebrating the Maritime Club in OpenSim celebrates its 10th anniversary. The club is located on OS Grid, the developers grid, and it's actually today at 1 p.m. So I'm going to shut up because I don't want you to go away. We've got another show coming up. Open since longest running live music venue, the Maritime Club Belfast, is celebrating its 10th anniversary this weekend. And Open Sim is not that much more than 10 years it's old itself. So to actually have a venue and an event that is being I must admit they promote it. When there's an event on there, I get messages from here, there and everywhere. So it's well promoted, but it's been doing it for 10 years. And that's no mean achievement in a platform that's probably barely 12 years old itself. So that's actually happening today, their little party, but whether you go to the party or not, it's not really here or there. It's the anniversary itself, I think, is very significant. So congratulations to the Belfast to Virtual Belfast and that club. Okay, that's it for my actual links, as it were, which I've been reading out from the feeds. So next up, well, actually, I better do it before I forget. We have two sort of poster displays to show you on the screen. I better zoom out so I can see what they are. The first one is the official poster advertising the next Hypergrid International Expo, which will be happening on 24th and 25th of March, almost certainly on Craft Grid at the link that's on that sign. Like the beta version we ran, or the alpha version we ran in December, it will be divided up into international segments where they'll actually take place in different languages with translations available for people who don't speak the language of the presentation or whatever. We have already, I know, added a Portuguese segment to this one. We still have French, Germany, Spanish, and Italian, which were the 4 languages used at the first one. Plus, of course, English. There aren't usually. We do a half-time show in English, but the whole idea of the expo is international with a focus on different language areas. So the new one with 5 languages, quite a few bookings and stuff already coming in. The call for proposals is still out there if you are doing something very interesting on the hypergrid, which basically means any OpenSim destination that's hypergrid enabled, especially outside the Anglo sphere of activity. Then get in touch with me or Thursday Ember, and we'll try and slot you in. Obviously, things that are highly visual are a plus point here, because the audience will also will be a range of different language speakers. So the more visual stuff you can show, the better. But we do translations and everything anyway. And finally, adding to that, another major Virtual Worlds event. This actually takes place sometimes as a day in OpenSim. I'm not quite sure this year. But it principally happens in Linden Labs' Walled Garden World of Second Life, by way of tradition, really. And usually one day is spent on another platform, although I don't know the details on that yet. It's called VR Evolutions or V Revolutions, depending on how you want to do it. The play on words there is deliberate, and it's actually this year's incarnation of Virtual World's Best Practices in Education Conference, and that's happening on the 15th to 17th of March this year, which will be in fact the weekend directly before this year's HIE that we just covered. And no doubt we'll be hearing on our chat show, not this week, but in shortly, from Kevin Fina, and somebody will be finding out more about that conference, and indeed HIE and everything else. So that's it from me this week, but I would be neglectful if I didn't turn to James and say, what's happening with those developer people?
Well, okay, Mal. And I don't know what's happening with the people, but I know what's going on with their avatars. How does that sound?
That sounds fine to me. So same difference.
Okay, very good. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend last Tuesday's meeting, and just as a quick summary, these are the OpenSim office hours where developers will meet and chat with grid owners and even grid users about the OpenSim server code. And so it was, from what I could tell from the notes, it was fairly well attended. And the discussions really were, the first was talking about, again, the Mono support or the .NET support. I'm conflating some things there, but the upshot of it is that OpenSim may soon not support Windows XP. And so I think you should read the notes and get a better sense of that. But that'd be something to keep in mind. Yeah.
I'm most surprised. Does anything support XP anymore?
Well, true.
I mean, Microsoft themselves don't.
Right.
Go figure.
But yeah. we have people of all means in Open Simulator, so it's something to make official anyway when an operating system is no longer working with the platform.
Well, I have a disused laptop that's running not quite as old, but it's running NVIDIA card in it, but it's running Windows Vista. Can't be updated. It still runs. Sure. Right. It still runs the virtual world view fine. So yeah.
I think all operating systems
in an emergency.
Right?
Yeah, if I'm going out and need the virtual world with me, I can't take it on my iPad or let alone my phone. So I dig out that laptop. Very rare now, but it does work fine when I need it.
Yep. Commodore Basic is probably still out there somewhere. Commodore 64 operating system.
Quite possibly.
Yep.
I have tucked away in the corner here a Commodore Amiga. Because what do? You can't get rid of it, can you? It's history. I think, I'm going to use that for a bit of video now and again, and like hell I do, but I have to keep it.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And then let's see. The next topic was talking about the mesh issues, the Ruth and the Roth 2.0, and I'm still not really clear if that is going to be SL only. I have to do a little more careful reading on that, but definitely something to keep an eye on for Open Simulator viewers. What they're going to support in those textures. Yeah.
Well, that post I mentioned about it from Austin Tate. Right, and the links he gave, that specifically said this was unique to Open Simulator. Although they did, it then, as you probably heard me mention, it mentioned something about SL Alpha protocols or something. And I thought, obviously it still connects somehow to similar thing in SL or something. But this that post at least is promoting it as maybe it's a modification of the idea or whatever, but it being unique to OpenSim. So go figure.
Well, I do recall a conversation some weeks ago where, again, the common thread we'd come back to is that there are well-designed meshes and poorly designed meshes. And I think that's related to these changes in the avatars. And then the discussion.
Oops! I appear to have lost James's voice.
Oh, sorry about that.
You're back. Wonderful.
That's wireless technology.
Oh yeah, go figure.
I was saying that remaining discussion was again talking about some of the .NET code, and then the last item was that the host of the meeting, Andrew Hellershanks, is still working on setting up a Patreon account for development work, and I am very interested in this model of a way to support developers for their coding work. And
sure,
I'm going to watch that really closely. And if there's any way that we can, lend our support to the people writing the code for this wonderful tool, I think that'd be fantastic. And that's it for the report.
Well, thank you. And I would agree on that last point. I mean, Patreon is kind of a model, it's not quite an agency, but it's kind of model for, like artists always used to have patrons, didn't they?
Yeah.
And the idea is, you patronize the individual and hopefully they become famous. I guess you go and maybe you can buy while they're products too, because as a patron you didn't subsidize it, but as you're a patron, they've achieved something that you also want to buy separately. But it does take, if you developers, code, even programmers and stuff like that, from sort of indirectly outside, they're not artists, but if you treat them, if you patronize them, quite frankly, people become patrons for them. It seems like a very good way of getting them to develop and having some support and maybe financial remuneration, without actually being employed or working for a vested interest, if you see what I mean, that can often interfere with that open source kind of psyche. So I lost you again briefly, but you're back. Good old wireless.
Well, and on that topic too, I'm noticing a lot of YouTube publishers are opening patron accounts, and it's I do like the patronage model of developing artistic content, creative content, because it funds the person creating it. It doesn't fund the distribution channels and the mid-market resellers, I guess would be it.
Yeah.
So. It's like I say, it's very interesting to watch it develop.
It doesn't fund the middlemen, all the middlemen complaining, but there you go. Yep. Yeah, very good model indeed. Anyway, we need to be out of here. We are actually back on air on this channel on the hour, which is noon Pacific, if you're watching live, with a show called the In-World Review. It's our Social Worlds chat show. I see them hopping in already, actually, so I know we're going to be joined by Leslie from Tangle Grid, and amongst other things, we'll hear about science fiction expo that is coming up, and we'll be joined by Tia Winters, who's doing some work where I think it's called Sing City or something over in DigiWorlds, but also she's been around a while and was very much a principal contact person in Adam Frisby's Science Space World, which is a completely different virtual worlds platform. So we'll be talking to them on the hour on this channel, so stay with us. Meanwhile, we're out of here. We will be back same time, same place next week with another bunch of news for you. So we'll see you then. Thank you from me, and thank you from James. Bye for now.